How's everybody doing tonight?
Great!
Goodness. I think there's more coffee in the back if you guys want to drink some. Unfortunately, I drank a cup, and you are going to have to listen to me. It's an honor to be here tonight as your city manager. Having been here now a full year and a half, I think it is. Yeah, Scott's shaking his head. It's questionable. I have to tell you, there's been a lot of challenges and things that we've had to grapple with. But every day, I'm very excited, as staff will tell you, Lake Worth is a great place. And there's a lot of neat things right on the horizon here and things that we're working on. And I appreciate the leadership of the council, the commission, and the mayor. And I also appreciate my staff. They've been great. I would like to introduce, though, the real boss for me and love of my wife, Deborah, who joined me tonight. She actually just got off work herself, so she's probably hungry. Yes, there you go. All right, I apologize. We had a technical difficulty, and I can't seem to fix computers very well. But you each have a handout, and let's run through this. It's the presentation tonight, and you're here to talk and to listen and ask questions about Lake Worth 2020. So, on the first page.
Oops, excuse me, Mike, I'm sorry, I got to interrupt.
Yes.
Because, I do that so well.
And
On every table, y'all are going to see some big index cards, and there should be pencils. As you're hearing, what you're hearing, if you have questions, write them down. Not everybody's comfortable getting up and asking a question in person, so here's your opportunity. If you want to write it down, Mr. Bornstein and the other staff members will be happy to answer. Just hold it up when you're ready, and I'll pick them up.
all right, we might have the technical difficulty solved here shortly. Let's go ahead and start. What is Lake Worth 2020? That's going to be the question we're going to try to answer tonight. How we're going to do it. And let's first talk about why are we even talking about this as a subject in this city. And it's important, and I was talking to staff about this, and Mr. Carr, I have to give him credit. Maybe he doesn't want it on this one. We sometimes talk about the city in terms of a large house. And everybody can relate to a house, obviously. And in a house, if your roof is in bad repair, if it's leaking, it may not be leaking in your den where you have your pool table or in your kitchen, but it's leaking in another part of the house. The fact is, the condition of that roof, regardless of which room you're in, affects the whole value of the house. You can't just sort of section off a part of the house. You have to address the whole thing. And the city, very much, is like that analogy. When you have infrastructure and the core things and fundamentals of the city in the built environment that aren't doing well, it affects the whole city. So this is important to remember when we talk about Lake Worth 2020 and why we're doing it. Now, what really does our roof, what's the problem with our roof here in Lake Worth? Why do you think that there's holes and it's leaking? If you go to the next slide, you can see a history of property values since the big downturn, since the Great Recession started, the real estate bubble. We were at one time up near $3 billion in valuation in the city. 7 square miles of city, $3 billion. We have since dropped down to where we're at $1 billion, 1/3 of what we were just a few years ago. And proportionally, the government has shrunk down. We have a lot of employees and folks who are no longer with the city. It's shrunk down to match that budget. But it's been a tremendous drop in our fortunes as a city. It's not necessarily unique to this community because it's experienced all over the country. But Lake Worth was especially hard hit, and this is evidence of it here. What's also interesting is the disparity, the difference between the taxable value and the actual market value. You can see that spread has jumped quite a bit. In the next slide, we're almost catching up there. You ready? What else should we turn it on? Look at that. What is it? How have we done? Roof. Okay. Another interesting statistic is, of our ad valorem taxable value in this city, if you look at the residential components, you can see that they're pretty well evenly split in these large sections here between non-homesteaded residential and homesteaded residential. Actually, there's more, and I would sort of generalize these as rentals. And you can read a lot of things into this here, such as, we'd like to have more homeowners, but But what's also kind of interesting is non-homesteaded properties pay a lot of taxes, so they're actually kind of helping subsidize. And even in the bad condition we're in, this still isn't making up enough taxes to carry the city. Of our residential units, we have about 11,636. About half are rental. We have about 2,000 foreclosures and over 2,000 vacant and registered properties. That's pretty substantial in this city. It's a good number to have, and it's a problem. In this area, we thought this statistic was pretty telling. Over the period from 2002 to 2010, Palm Beach County lost 8,233 jobs. Of that, Lake Worth made up almost 1,600 jobs. Lake Worth, the city proper, we lost a lot of commercial, retail, and economic activity in the city during that period. And it shows along our commercial corridors. US 1 is a fine example. Poverty rate comparisons has been talked about as well. And if you look down here on the side, in the United States, the last census was about 10% of the population, and it's jumped up to 15 here recently in our last estimate. You can see the city of Belle Glade is at 38% poverty. Next, we're a little bit ahead of them at 32%, but we're behind Riviera Beach in poverty rates. This is a city that has a substantial number of people who meet that criteria. West Palm and the other, Palm Beach County in general, are down closer to the national average. For a 7 square mile city that's on the ocean, on the intercoastal, on Lake Osborne, that's bounded by wealthy communities and successful communities, this city generates $5.3 million in ad valorem taxes. That's the total of what we generate on the property. We transfer over more than that from our electric utility. $7.3 million currently. And that's something that's evolved over time. When we talk about this issue, it's basically, in our minds, pretty much a hidden tax. And it's what has helped prop up this community now and in the past. We continue to have growing expenses that we, when we talk about the budget, have no control over. There are certain contractual obligations for pensions and costs that we're tied to, we're married to. They were decisions that were made years earlier. We have to pay them. And depending upon how the economy goes up and down, those stocks and those investments and those pension funds for closed police, closed fire, and also for the general employees, we have to pay whatever the actuary says we have to pay. And we can't get out of those obligations. And they've been growing along with certain insurance, and we've hammered our insurance costs continuously. We've cut back on the health insurance benefit, and we've actually done really well with our property casualty and our workers' comp. And we also have fixed responsibilities. As a city, undeniably, there are certain things people expect us to do regardless. They don't even want to listen to the issue of budget or staff or that there's no money to do something. And we have a lot of amenities. For a city with such a dire physical, financial situation, we have a lot of amenities. We have a lot of parks. We've added parks. We've added areas for the public that have to be maintained. And if you've been in any of them, you know how difficult that is. We have certain things that go on in the parks and certain populations that tear things up continuously. We are constantly, and that's part of what Jamie and our Leisure Services Director, who's not here tonight, are constantly combating the upkeep of these parks. We're married to those, and we need to keep them up. And that's something that we grapple with. Now, as far as taxable value, and we're trying to flesh this issue out more as we go, but right now we were able to get this information from the property appraiser. And basically, the huge purple bluish section are properties out of the 11,633 residential units that are valued at $100,000 or less. Their taxable value is at that range maximum. The next section is the green section right here. And that's properties that are $200,000 down to $100,000. So you can see we have a almost 93% of all the residential properties in the city are valued at $200,000 or less.
Mike,
Yeah.
it's actually 86 instead of 82 here, so it's really 97% of properties.
Okay, they made up the numbers, 97%. It's even more dire. That we have a lot of properties that are not valued at what they should be. And in a city, when you rely on value, taxable value, to help fund the general government, the question becomes, are there enough properties in the city that you would label as functional? Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room that pay taxes, you pay your fair share of taxes, but there's a lot of properties in the city that probably are not, based on the statement. And they're off the rolls for a variety of reasons, or they're not paying their fair share. There's not enough shoulders to the wheel. So the question becomes, as we start to look at strategies to make the city self-sustainable and healthy, a way to wean ourselves off of the disincentives of the electric rates and the different things that we're dealing with, we have to somehow figure out how to add value to the base and somehow get those properties into a functional state because of two things. One, obviously, they'll help support the city. But two, generally, we can sort of make the correlation that if you've got a property that's undervalued or off the records, something's probably not happening on that property that's pulling the city forward. It could be a blighting influence. It could be actually pulling us back. That's not true in all cases because there's a lot of people who don't pay taxes that their property is so fine. But there is a strong correlation to having a lot of properties off the tax rolls and not pulling their weight, that they're not having some kind of investment occurring on them or somebody living in a house or conducting a business. And that is a problem. So, how do we grow that valuation base? Government does not have the ability to create jobs. We do not have the ability to spend inordinate amounts of money to stimulate the economy. What we can do, and what we do very well in local government, is try to create context for investment to occur so that people will bring their lives, their businesses, their investments to this city and join y'all in putting your shoulders to the wheel of making it a great place. So, private sector investment is key. Remove the disincentives to that investment. I touched on electric rates, and you've heard it 3 times, and probably four more times. The fact is, people have been making decisions whether or not to move into this city based on where the electric rate, where the electric service area was. And we have to remove that. That's a huge disincentive to both businesses as well as residential. We also had, most recently, the Mayor Commission just passed the land development regulations. They had been in process for 8 years. For many years, you did not know if you owned property or went to buy property in the city of Lake Worth, what should you do on that property without being subject to an arbitrary action of either the elected body or staff. Having a clean set of rules that everybody knows what to do is an incentive because it spells out the process. It's not a disincentive. So those are the kinds of things when we talk about removing those disincentives. And we need to implement strategies that have significant return on investment. The things that we choose to do as a city should really try to feed back on making us healthy. There's lots of things cities can do. We can add programs, we can build something, we can do a lot of things that don't necessarily pay for themselves or add to that attractiveness of the city for investment, for people to bring their lives and their investment here. So everything we do, we need to have that in mind when we talk about strategies. And Lake Worth 2020 is one of those strategies. And put in that context, it's not just about building some roads and filling potholes. It's really about helping the city heal itself and to become sustainable. So that's the why we're considering this issue. Now let's talk about what the program is. I'm going to have Jamie Brown come up, and he's going to run through a description about, at this point in time, the things that we've talked about with the commission. And I just want to clarify, this is a draft, this is a working document. Nothing's been officially consigned, sealed, and delivered and rolled out here. There's been talk about this is definitely going to be on the March ballot. That's not the case. We're there's a lot of unanswered questions, and we're going to need your input as we go forward. So I'm going to remove that stress level if anybody thinks this is something, it's a fait accompli. This is something that still is in the process of being talked about and worked through. So with that, I'm going to have Jamie talk about some of the details.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. My name is Jamie Brown, Public Services Director for the city. Quick overview of what we're looking at here. Just a cross-section of the city. Obviously, your underground utilities, water, sanitary, sewer, and storm. In the past, what's been done in the city is utilities would come through and basically, actually public services would pave a road. The next year, the year after, utilities would come through and do water main or sewer work. So you're basically digging up a brand new roadway. Moving forward, everything we're doing is coordinated. So now all your underground utilities are going to be done before the road gets paved. We're also going to be doing underground, the conduit for electrical, for when we actually underground the electric. Framework for the 2020. We needed to set a level of priority in how these projects are actually chosen. Number one was life safety. Proximity to our neighborhood schools, number of citizens affected, the actual roadway condition based on PCI rating, which is Pavement Condition Index, and we'll get into that in a second. And then environmental safety and public health, which is sewer, and then we'll get into the last three a little bit later on. The city had 3 separate master plans done. One was the roadway master plan, and that was this past year by 88 Engineering. Actually, Brett Woodfield back there was one of the engineers who was working with us on that. Stormwater master plan was done, started in 2011, which identified all the areas in the city where we have deficient stormwater. And then the water hydrant master plan actually identified all the areas where we don't have sufficient pressure in the city, as well as that 300-foot radius around a hydrant that is needed. So we have a lot of areas where we're missing hydrants all over the place. We have 116 miles in the city of paved roadways and 27 that are unpaved roadways and alleyways. A lot of the east-west streets that you see that are just kind of, we call it asphalt, mixture of grass and asphalt. But this is a pie chart just kind of breaking down how that works out. This is the Pavement Condition Index. This is what was based, we used the roadway master plan, and this is the actual chart that we use. So basically, if a road was ranked from 91 to 100, it's a brand new road. Nothing needs to be done to it because it's an excellent condition. And then conversely, at the very bottom, anything ranked from 0 to 55 means it's a complete reconstruction, meaning you're not just doing an overlay on the asphalt, you're completely pulling up the road, you're redoing the subgrade and everything. And then everything else in between, obviously 56 to 70, deficient condition. Each one of these categories has different types of treatments for those particular roadways. Whether it's a mill and overlay, whether it's microsurfacing. Hard to see, but this is our current roadway system broken out into good all the way down to fail. Roadway system's color-coded. These are all of the proposed water mains. This plan, we'd be installing 15 miles of water main, 136 new hydrants. All of the blue circles that you see up here, that basically means that those areas are covered as far as water coverage. All of the, here's your pointer. All of these areas in here where you see gaps, that means we're not meeting that minimum 300-foot radius, and we're missing water hydrants there. So this plan is going to actually add 136 new hydrants to this, and it's affecting a little over 2,700 properties. These are current projects, or recent projects we're currently working on. They are not part of this Lake Work 2020 plan, but we needed to show these because these are being done. They're just not going to be shown in the actual plan itself because these are already funded. Our base plan, and the number we really need to pay attention to is the 55, the pavement condition index of 55 and below. That was the number that we were looking at as far as showing if a road needed a complete reconstruction. So that means the road is completely failed. So everything that's 55 and under, we're redoing all the utilities underneath that need to be addressed, and then bringing everything up to asphalt, new curbing, new sidewalk, new everything. That's shown 55. Now, originally this was, we didn't get the updated 7 year. It's still in the works. When we originally presented this to the commission, this slide was based off of a 5-year base plan. Now we're looking at kind of extending that into 7 years. This is just an overall of the city, broken down by years when we were looking at the 5-year plan. And the hashed areas are CDBG area, Community Development Block Grant. Now the base plan was, like I said, everything 55 and below. We looked at a second option, which would basically say, now we're looking at a pavement condition of 65 and below. And then option 3 would be 75 and below. And now we're actually looking into an option 4, which would actually have another category of 76 going up to 83. And when we get into these, you'll see as you go up from the base plan and add each one of these levels, how many more streets are going to be taken care of. So this was just the base plan at 55 and under, broken down by year. And conversely, the roads that are not going to be covered in District 3, if we go with that base plan. We do the next level up at 65, obviously a few more roads here will be taken care of. And these are the roads not covered if we went up to 65. Going up to 75, even more roads taken care of. And fewer that are not. And then, as I said, there's another option we're looking at now, which is at 76 to 83. And going even further, what would we actually do with a rating of 84 and above? We're looking at some different options of things we can do, mainly switching the criteria once you get an 84. And now changing it from a PCI kind of being the thing that determines what we do to the sidewalk and the actual condition of the sidewalk being that. And we actually have ADA working on some sidewalk stuff for us right now. Basically what that would do is a lot of the areas where your road's in good condition, but you're missing sidewalk, you have cracked sidewalk, you have trip hazards on the sidewalk, we would then be addressing those areas that had not good roads, but terrible sidewalks. So at 84, we're looking at some different options right now is what we can do once we hit that threshold. Do you want to go into Parker Commerce at all?
Yeah, you just, that's a big piece. You already moved it over there.
Coach William is gone. William Waters, our Director for Community Sustainability, has kind of been the one who's been heading this thing for the past couple of years. But Park and Commerce, we're making a large portion of this 2020 plan. It's been an ongoing thing for a while. I think Commissioner Maxwell has been covering on this for a while, but this is something that needs to happen, and this is something we're including as part of this overall 2020 master plan. This is our 393-acre industrial site. We have our final build-out numbers here in 2035, and all the infrastructure improvements which would fall underneath this Park and Commerce plan. And it pretty much encompasses everything you can possibly imagine as far as infrastructure is concerned. There's a lot of work that needs to be done out there. Now, these are the enhancements that we were looking into for the 2020 plan. Everything we've seen up to this point has just been infrastructure. It's just been underground utilities, your water, your sewer, your storm, your actual roadway surface itself, your curbing, your sidewalk. It has done nothing with traffic calming, nothing with street lights, nothing with landscaping or anything that would be considered beautification. So what we had done was kind of broken out price-wise what each one of these line items would cost for roughly 15 blocks. So we have the traffic calming, street lights, hardscape features such as bulb outs, which would fall under traffic calming. And this is basically a cost per block. and a total estimated per year. So we can look at how many blocks we're actually looking at doing, and at least we have a base number, whether that's 15, whether that's 30, whether it's 45, we have a number at least to kind of help us estimate how much money we're looking at for this, depending on which way we want to go. And number, I guess 4 all the way down, neighborhood entryway features. We really want to concentrate on our arterial roads like 6th and 10th. Those roads are coming off of 95. We really need to do some things from basically 95 all the way down to Federal. And then as far as kind of taking some of those features of the neighborhoods, it's going to kind of be a case-by-case basis and coming to association meetings like this and kind of getting a feel for what people are really looking for. City buildings, this was another, again, this is still just in the works. We've got a lot of issues and a lot of facility problems, I guess you would say. And to make this an overall plan, we really need to address a lot of these. Like myself, for one, we're working out of trailers. And the city garage, I don't know if anyone's really seen it, but it's not the most efficient workspace after being hit by the hurricane back in 2005. So we've got a lot of people working out of spaces that just should not be worked out of. So last year we'd come out with an RFP, request for proposal, for a city services complex, which is basically a joint public services utilities building, which would be located over where the current 1900 building is, which is on 2nd Avenue North, west of 95, just behind that Sabor Publix. The 1000 Lake building, which is just west of the City Hall. I guess the City Hall building where finance is currently located, the original auditorium. The City Hall Annex building needs a lot of work to it. We have the Health Department building, which is north of F Street. There are just a lot of different things we need to do as far as facilities are concerned. So this is an aspect we also have built into this project that we're going to kind of define a little bit more going forward. Land acquisition, downtown parking and public spaces. Acquisition of vacant foreclosed properties that the city manager was talking about earlier. These are all things that we're going to need to address moving forward to kind of push forward.
And you don't want to get into that.
Yeah, these are all
All right, and just to clarify, each one of these things that Jamie presented, going from the base plan up into these other categories, we're trying to pull together all the information that will be presented to the commission in almost like a mini format of picking and choosing which ones that they want to pursue. So what you're seeing here is our concepts and ideas that we're working on. Nothing, again, is in stone. And Steve will be able to give us some more information on the how this project will be done. Mr. Carr, can you see that?
Matter of fact, I'm old and blind. Jamie's going to be handing out a much more readable version of this chart along with a couple of others that